Broads Media.
Yeah, welcome on in, everybody, to the day after pod. So I have consumed a lot of Eagles talk over the last 24 hours on many different platforms. Here's what I heard the most of. Did this fall more on Kenny Pickett's shoulders, or did this loss fall more on the defense's shoulders? And if we're only specifically looking at those two in a debate form, simple. Defense. Yes, they actually found a way to turn the Commanders over 5 times, and that's impressive. But it's actually hard to allow 36 points while turning the football over 5 times. And there are plenty of domino effects. Poor special teams, allowing the Commanders to start off with good field position, the offense stalling and not keeping the football as long as we would like in certain situations. So when you boil it down, yes, every single phase played a role in this loss. But if we're just going to take a bird's eye view at it all, I'm extremely disappointed, more so in the defense, because that's your bread and butter. Your offense lost a key monster contributor 11 plays into the game. Your defense needs to not only do what they normally do, but do what they normally do and some. We need you this week. Now, the problem is CJ gets kicked out. Josh Sweat has an injury for a bit. Same with Jordan Davis. Darius Slay leaves, and there's a 12 men on the field penalty. When he's trying to get back on, then he tries to run off the field. It was chaos. And for a team that's as talented as the Eagles, even with the backup quarterback, to lose to a Commander squad, it's going to take chaos for that to be done. So there needs to be blame everywhere, but I do believe that the bulk of the blame should go on the defense. The Kenny Pickett thing, though, is fascinating to me. And actually, before I get to that, personally, I think it's not even one of those two. Personally, it's Devonta Smith. That's the problem. He dropped the football. Just like when we lost to the Falcons. Yo, Saquon, the drop is truly unacceptable, and you hurt the team that day. Devonta hurt the team massively. He hurt the team more than Kenny Pickett, and he hurt the team more than the defense. That's my number one answer. But if I'm strictly going to look at the hot 2 buttons that were pressed throughout the entire Monday, breaking down this puppy, I'd say defense over Kenny Pickett, because I thought Kenny Pickett did his job. He was not perfect, and he had bad sequences. But he did his job to win this game. It's funny. When Jalen Hurts has 5 or 6 weeks of not the greatest football, all I hear is, well, it's a new coordinator again, and it takes time to learn a new offense. Yet Kenny Pickett hasn't played since he got benched last year in a different organization, is now the backup. It's week, 16 now? He gets thrown in when he wasn't getting any reps with the first team all week to prepare for this game, yet he's got to go out there and you expect a backup quarterback to be perfect. I mean, what are we doing here? Knowing everything surrounding Kenny Pickett getting thrown into the fire, I think he did all right. Defense, I need you. I need you to be clutch. I need you to sack up. I need you to make plays. 4th and 11. You can't let Daniels run around you like that. You can't. And I know that he's a little bit better in shape and health-wise, is probably a better way to say it, than when these two teams matched up earlier. But you got to be more disciplined. I'm watching edge rushers go super far behind. Now you're allowing Daniels to have all this open space. Dude, we got to contain better. We got to be smarter. We got to be sharper all across the board. Very undisciplined game. And the coaches deserve blame for that too. I don't think that they were super crisp either. So it was a mess. It was a mess. But let's play the Devonta Smith audio, because as much as I'm disappointed in Devonta, first off, I love him. I want to make that very clear. I am a monster fan of Devonta Smith, and it's okay to criticize him when he has such a crucial drop like that. He was my number one issue. But I did like the way he handled it post-game. And I was looking at some of my comments on the post-game reaction show, and I didn't hear Devonta Smith yet. And one of the comments said, this person really despised Devontae's answer. It was as if it didn't bother him. So that set off a little alarm in my head, and I put that off to the side and said, okay, I'll remember that when I go listen to some of the post-game pressers, because I like to do my show, and then obviously it takes a while to hear from Jalen, to hear from AJ, to hear from Nick. I'm not going to wait until everybody speaks to do my show, because I have other things I got to do on a Sunday night, help my wife out with the baby and all sorts of things. So I normally get to some of the post-presser thoughts, whether it's in mid-show, I'll take a look and a deeper dive, maybe 20 minutes into the program or after. I expected it to be way worse. I actually loved how Devonta Smith handled this. Here's Devonta Smith on the drop pass.
I just dropped the ball. I ain't gonna beat myself up over it. It's life, it's part of the game. And shit, I made all the tough catches there, and then the easy one I had, I dropped. It is what it is. Trust the game. Ain't nobody else fault but mine.
You able to move on from this and obviously not let it weigh down on your shoulders too much?
That game over with. Ain't nothing I can do about it now.
Was it one of those where you just looked it in, or you?
I just dropped the ball. Ain't no teaching on it. Just catch the ball. It's simple.
Do you like that in that moment they go to you?
Yeah, for sure. I was calling for it, and when they put it in my hand, I got to make the guy play.
I would go to Devonta Smith over and over and over and over and over and over and over again moving forward. That's how much confidence I have in Skinny Batman. So, I mean, he's fantastic. He just had a really tough moment. And that doesn't read to me that he's not bothered by it. I actually think for a Devonta Smith standard and the way that he normally addresses situations, he looks pretty pissed. Okay, he's not happy with himself. But you gotta flush it. You have to. Us fans, we feel differently about certain plays. Corners all the time. If you're a cornerback and you get toasted for a 75-yard touchdown bomb, I don't want you thinking about that all day. I don't want you thinking about that the next quarter. I don't want you thinking about that at halftime. You can't. You can't let this eat you alive because you are a stud. Can't go back and change it now. Let's move forward. And it would be different if I thought Devonta Smith was a player that would allow for this to sort of sneak by. Meaning, if he didn't worry about it and he went out there and dropped 9 more passes, he's not Jalen Reagor. He's not J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. If those two ever decided to have the balls to step up to a mic and said, yeah, I'm not too worried about it after having 5 drops in a row in 5 straight weeks, then I got a problem. But there's no reason to ever believe like that is going to be the case with Devonta. He's such a stud that he doesn't need to sit on it. He knows what happened. He knows what transpired. I don't think he needs to allow for this to eat him alive so much so he makes sure it doesn't happen again. I think he knows. He's a different athlete. He's a different cat. He's a different star. Stars, they think differently. I don't think he's the type of player that needs to soak in it, to have it marinate. He's too good. He knows. Same applies to Saquon. Same applies to AJ. You just go out the next week and do your thing. You go back the next week, and yeah, you're going to be a little aggravated, and you're going to be pissed off, but you play with an attitude. You play with some edge, and you go beat up on a Dallas Cowboys team, and maybe you use it to your advantage internally a bit when it's Sunday, 1 o'clock next week, as the game got moved from 4:25 to 1. So I like the way that he handled things, honestly. I think that's good. That fits him. 2 thumbs up. 2 thumbs up. Now, the Kenny Pickett stuff that I wanted to dive a little bit more into. There is this narrative that Kenny Pickett sucks so much that all they had to do was stop Saquon. And the way the Commanders went all out for number 26, it's because Kenny blows. While Kenny Pickett's skill set played a role in the way the Commanders dialed certain defenses up, here's the truth. What do you think they'd do if Tanner McKee was out there? The same thing. It doesn't matter who it was. Kenny Pickett, Tanner McKee, Josh McCown, anybody, any backup quarterback who would have been in that position, they would have done the same all-out thought of don't let 26 beat us and see if someone else can. And by the way, Kenny Pickett did. He did. It wasn't pretty. And most of the times, it's not pretty with all the circumstances leading up to Kenny Pickett having to take that football 11 plays in. But Devontae dropped it. And the defense let you down. But Kenny Pickett did enough. Now, he did enough by just a hair. But he did enough. And I just don't know if the people that are bashing Kenny Pickett have a fair expectation of what Kenny Pickett is now. Would I like to see Tanner McKee later on if Jalen Hurts can't go this upcoming week? You can talk me into it. I'm not pro Kenny Pickett is great. I'm saying based off of this last performance and this last performance only, was he good enough to beat a Commanders team? Yes. But the other areas of the team let him down, even though he was far from great, far from good. I thought he was okay. A lot of his good plays were kind of crossed out by bad plays. But if you have good plays and great plays that are matched with bad plays and ugly plays, and you just get okay when it's all said and done and they all wash each other out and you get neutral, that's sort of what he gave you. And that's a backup quarterback standard. I got hit with this tweet over the last 10 hours or so that, oh yeah, moving the goalpost, that is acceptable, but what Jalen was doing through the first 9, 10, 11, 12 games when he was getting ridiculed wasn't? Well, dude, one's a franchise quarterback. Jalen Hurts gets judged based off of being a franchise quarterback with the bar set to, is he going to carry us to a Super Bowl or not? Or is he going to be a part of the plan to get us to a championship? Is he going to be part of the team and the brand with the run game and the strong defense to get us to a championship and win? And I think that's the right bar to have set for him because he has that type of skill set. He has that type of power. He is that type of quarterback where we can have those debates. Can Lamar do it? Can he not? Well, the reason why you even have that discussion about Lamar Jackson is because he's that elite. Will Josh Allen ever get over the hump in the AFC? The reason we have that discussion about him is because he is that elite. With Jalen, the reason we have those discussions is because he's in the mix. So it really is credit to who he is. When I'm judging Kenny Pickett, 11 plays into the game is, can you survive in advance with that play on that day? And I think the answer was yes. If Devontae didn't drop it. Just how I see it. Now, there was talk about Nick Sirianni's decision to kick the field goal under 2 minutes to make it a 5-point game. The Birds were up 2. They kicked a field goal. And obviously that set up the game-winning drive by Daniels. I got no problem with making it, you have to score a touchdown to beat us, knowing who our defense has been all season long. It's your strength of your team. You're down your quarterback. If you went for it and didn't get it, Nick Sirianni would have been crucified for not making it at least a field goal game. Because at least now it's you can't go and get into field goal range and beat us with a field goal. You have to go the length of the field and put up 7 to take this one home. And to the Commanders' credit, they did. But I'm okay with applying that pressure, knowing everything that transpired, even knowing CJGJ wasn't there. I'm still cool with kicking the points. If you're up 2 and you make it 5, and now you're putting pressure on the other team where it has to go in the end zone instead of just to the field goal territory, I'm so good with that philosophy. That doesn't bother me at all. I think the only reason why people are angry is because the other team actually went down and scored. But the thought process prior to seeing the result isn't foolish. You're with Kenny Pickett. And while there were some decent fourth down stuff, this doesn't make Nick Sirianni silly to go up 5. Under 2. That's just my thought on it. Would I have liked to see more points scored off of these turnovers? Without a doubt. Without a doubt. You're going to find 1,000 different things wrong with some of these numbers offensively with Kenny Pickett. QBR in the second half, points off for turnovers, this and that. None of it's going to be pretty. But it just goes back to how I have my expectations set when that is even what we're talking about. Kenny Pickett in a game, especially mid-game, when you don't get any reps with the one. He hasn't played a game in a year in the NFL. A year in the NFL. He's been benched and then with second teamers forever. This is the norm, if not probably maybe even better than the norm. The defense can't get cooked like that. You can't make silly mistakes. You can't have that many personal fouls. You can't be getting kicked out of the game if you're CJGJ. Now, part of me goes, it's not really his fault. If the refs are that stupid and that incompetent, he gets punched in the face and gets a flag, and then he's chirping and gets another flag and he's kicked out. Did he really do anything wrong, or are the people around him that stupid? And if they're that stupid, there's nothing he can do. And it does seem to fall into that category, even though you got to be smarter once you get the original foul called on you, knowing if you get one more, it's over. But at the same time, it's the NFL. You're going to run your mouth. You should be allowed to run your mouth. And I think that's more of his resume is what got him kicked out more so than his actual action, which is unfair to him. But I guess once you see it actually happen, you put the blame on the player. That's what I'm hearing a lot of is, CJ, that's on you. I don't know if it is. But I guess it becomes, just by default, his problem. And you got to be smarter. Jalen Carter, Milton Williams had one, but even Jalen Carter's wasn't bad. I don't know how mad I can be when I know deep down that it's all bullshit. Now, I'll tell you what's not bullshit. Bookies.com/Broads. We all sports bet, baby, and we should. And what if I told you you have access to all the sign-up bonuses available at your fingertips on all online sports books right there for you at bookies.com/broads. So it's a nice little how do you do offered to you that you would be a fool not to take advantage of. You get to see all the sign-up bonuses. Bada bing, bada boom. Let's go here. Let's throw a couple dollars on this game. Here's a nice bonus. Have at it, Broads. Don't mind if I do. Bookies.com/Broads. And if you are new here, hello. Welcome on in to Broads Media. We're not only here on YouTube, which you can subscribe, of course, down below, but we're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of your podcasting platforms. If you search Sports Talk with Broads, if you leave a 5-star rating and a review, that will mean the absolute world to me. So thank you all so much. It truly helps out the algorithm over there on the podcasting platforms as well. So I just want to make sure I sprinkle that in too. Okay, with that, let's take some anytime hotline calls and hear from all of you after the game.
Bros, I really hope in the first round of the playoffs that we play Washington. I really hope so, because I think in a rematch, we will beat this team 100%. I mean, if you want to talk about every single break going the Commanders' way, yes, the turnover battle obviously favored the Eagles, but Jalen Hurts getting hurt in the first quarter, DJ Gardner-Johnson getting thrown out of the game on 2 questionable penalties. I mean, the fact that there wasn't offsetting penalties, at the bare minimum on the first unsportsmanlike conduct penalty was total bullshit. I mean, total bullshit. The 2 drops by Saquon and then obviously the drop by Devonta Smith. The Eagles getting 10 penalties in this game, almost 100 total yards of penalties. I mean, everything felt like it went in the Commanders' direction. I mean, it just really felt like that. And the Commanders pulled it out. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I think everybody has to realize if Jalen Hurts plays this game, we win this game. I'm not saying we beat them by 14, but we win this game if Jalen Hurts is our quarterback.
I don't disagree with you at all. Oh, yeah, you can understand fully the difference when he's out there, and it does hit you with a dose of reality. It does. If you ever had any doubts, and if you ever doubted just what his presence meant out there, even if he wasn't necessarily, the sexiest part of a play, sometimes he may not have to be. Sometimes it's because he's out there. Not sometimes. I'm talking 90% of the time. It's because he's out there. It's him. The way edge rushers, the way anybody on the defense has to be prepared for Jalen to be a monster. He had some nice runs in that game for a reason. Do you believe Kenny Pickett was going to take off and have any of those solid runs the way Jalen did? Of course not. And if he does, it's because if it's a lucky little bounce that goes your way, not really because of the pure athleticism and smartness of the QB. All due respect to Kenny. So Jalen, it was going to be a big day for him. I think he was going to put up numbers that you go back and go, holy shit, my man had 102. My man had 97 yards rushing. I thought it would be maybe a game like that where you had the opportunity between him and Saquon Barkley to have a feast, to have a fucking feast on the ground and obliterate them nonstop. And instead, we were robbed of that. I'm trying to think of the one game. What was the one game? Oh, my phone's over there, and I'm too lazy to look it up, but I want to. So let me grab my keyboard here. When Jalen had 100 yards, was it Green Bay? 100 yards rushing. I don't know why I thought it was Green Bay. It was in 2022. Versus Green Bay. Hurts surpassed 100 rushing yards in the first quarter with a 42-yard burst. In the game, Hurts also had 335 total yards and 3 touchdowns. Look at this brain. You kidding me? This noggin is polished. I can't even speak, so maybe it's not. But I thought we'd have a day like that. Because he can? Because that's in his repertoire? it changes the way some of these defenders can go after and gang tackle Saquon Barkley. They were getting him so quickly. It was obnoxious, where you could tell he was getting pissed off. He was getting beat up, sometimes even worse than he was when you were playing the New York Giants. Or when you were on the New York Giants. When he was on the Giants, he was getting swallowed up worse against this Commanders team with Kenny Pickett than he was when he was playing with Daniel Jones. And they were just selling all out because you don't have to respect Kenny. But just to throw this little wrinkle in here, they would have done that to any backup quarterback, rightfully. It's not a Kenny issue. It's a backup quarterback issue. Go ahead, beat us. Tanner McKee? I mean, it would have done that to anybody. You can't do that with one out there because he'll carve you up in so many other ways. And I don't want to hear for a second that Kenny Pickett doesn't deserve any sort of recognition, even if it's an A.J. Brown flag that caused some pass interference stuff, and, Lattimore versus A.J. Brown, that was successful because Lattimore couldn't even stop A.J. whatsoever. And it's like, well, he doesn't deserve any credit. All he did was chuck the ball up. Well, I mean, that's unfair because you can say that about anybody. So when Pat Mahomes hits a wide open Travis Kelce, does Pat Mahomes deserve credit for that? When Jalen hits a wide open whoever, Devonta Smith, 30 yards downfield, he doesn't deserve any credit for that. Like, that's all part of this. You got to recognize and understand matchups. You got to know that your receiver has a favorable matchup. You put the ball out there and you force plays to be made. You force the other team's defense to have to stop AJ. If that's the philosophy of Sirianni, Kellen Moore, and Kenny Pickett at times, because I thought at times they made it so simple of like, all right, we're just going to run this so much that I think it was almost uber aggressive in the run, and that also allowed the Commanders to swallow up the run game too. But if they wanted to chuck it to A.J. Brown and force Lattimore to win that matchup consistently, that won't happen. So Kenny deserves respect for noticing that, knowing that, attacking that. Oh, man, one of those drives, it was Barkley and it was flags. So? Someone has to manage that. And it's someone coming off the bench who hasn't played for 16 weeks and then plus all of last season once he got benched. I don't know. I think you're just going out of your way to hate Pickett. It wasn't as bad as people say it was. I'm just going to be honest with you. Back to the phones.
Bro, just RD calling from D.C. again, man.
Uh-oh.
I don't even know how to express my frustration.
Okay.
Everything that happened today. Honestly, they got just what they deserved. They played like some shit on defense. We had the game in the bag, even with Jalen out. And the defense still didn't step up. Still some boneheaded plays. CJ's got to be smarter, knowing he already had the one flag. It's just things that happen that we can't have that happen if we're going to be a Super Bowl winning team. And honestly, this is what they needed to get kicked in the teeth. And now maybe they'll come out, play some smarter ball. And, it's the Philly way. We have to do things the hard way. We can't fight for the one seed. We need to do it the hard way. And now we'll have to play for the number 2 to keep number 2 seed. And that's just the way it's going to be. If we're going to make a Super Bowl run, it'll go through Detroit. That's how it's going to be. See you, bros.
So it did take a hit. The odds did take a hit there. Just in regards of winning the whole thing, knowing that the number 1 seed's barely in play, and it's not. I mean, it's just not. But it took a hit. It's harder to take this path than what we wanted, even though that was slim hopes too. It was significantly more hopes than where we stand currently. The undisciplined part of it, I would feel differently. And I would feel worse about this if I think that's a true problem long term. I don't. I think this game in particular got out of hand. I don't think they are accustomed to constantly getting out of hand. They are smarter than this. They're more polished than this. They're normally more cohesive than this. They're definitely better coached than this. This was a tough one. But just like we saw with Detroit, and they're extremely hurt, but, they lose a game, and, well, what's going on? They respond with the win against the Chicago Bears, to the point where Ben Johnson's putting plays in the playbook where they're falling and fake fumbling on purpose. I also heard from Dave Zangaro and Ruben Frank, and this was by no means in a hot takey way, but they were saying, is there any fear that the defense can now actually go down a spiral because of how poor the defense was in this game? And I don't think so. I'm not there yet. I get why you bring it up, because maybe you leak oil a little bit. There's a lot of youth out there with Jalen Carter, with Nolan Smith, with Nakobe Dean, with Quinyon Mitchell, who got beat for the first time. We haven't seen him get beat like that and make decisions out there like that since he stepped into this league, right? So are they leaking oil a little bit? I think it's fair to just wonder, but I would have to see that if they do it against Dallas, if they have the same undisciplined game, and if they're making all sorts of crucial mistakes and they aren't well coached and it gets bad against Cooper Rush and the Dallas Cowboys coming to the link, knowing that they're trying to respond to that ugly loss against the Commanders, then I believe we can start hovering the panic button, not hitting the panic button, but hovering, going, all right, what the hell is going on here? But one game after you win 10 in a row, I'm not there yet. So while they were undisciplined and they weren't smart, this kick in the teeth, I don't know if it was a straight kick in the teeth, but it was a wake-up call. I think it was a wake-up call, but not really, because these aren't systemic problems either. You lost with your backup in. You didn't lose with Jalen, and he turned into this turnover machine where he threw 4 or 5 interceptions and all that. Like, that's not what he did either. So, and even if he did, you saw Jared Goff do that, and then they still continue to win after that. So what would that really mean if they responded to a bad performance? If Jalen played with a good performance against the Cowboys, I don't know. I'm talking out loud here, but I guess the moral of the story is anything that transpired on the field against the Commanders, I'm writing off as a one-off until proven otherwise, because I've seen so much good from them. I'm not there yet. The big thing is, when are we going to get Jalen Hurts back? As the last we heard from Nick Sirianni, which was Monday during his press conference, Jalen is not cleared the concussion protocol yet, and we will continue to get those updates throughout the week. So I hate losing. And it just sucks that on Christmas week, this is the week that we get hit with a loss for the first time in a while. I'm just not used to it. That's all. Hey, before we head out of here, drinkgaragebeer.com. It is the best light beer in the world, Garage Beer. Let me tell you something. 0% IPA, 100% light beer, 1,000% quality. There's no better beer out there. Drinkgaragebeer.com. All right, with that, of course, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I'll make sure to sprinkle that throughout the next couple of days as we continue to talk. I'll be on WIP over the next week and a half on the midday show, filling in for the midday show. Hugh Douglas and Joe Giglio, I will be in. So if you do have time to check it out, would greatly appreciate it. You guys are the best. Thank you all so much for the support, and I'll catch you all on the next one.